Jai Hind everyone. We have with us today Captain Gaurav Bajetha. He is ex-5 Gurkhas Frontier Force and presently he is heading the workplace infrastructure for the Unicorn Urban Company. So welcome to today's talk, Captain Bajetha.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for having me over.
आज आपसे बातचीत करेंगे हम बजटिंग एंड फाइनेंस ऑफ the workplace infra or the facility management. So I would first like to understand how do you kind of go about developing and manage your facilities budget? How do you develop and manage it?
So, just for everybody's information, for any organization, the cost of real estate and infrastructure is one of the highest outgoing costs. If I look at, most of the organizations, the key costs that will actually impact people are perhaps one, the people cost, that is your salaries cost. The second is marketing cost, the money that you spend for advertisements and selling your product or services. And mostly the top three is the cost of general administrative costs, your rentals, your office operations cost, the cost of the manpower that you use to run your offices, your housekeepers, your security guards, the cost of running your office, electricity, air conditioning, the facilities that you provide in your offices, the tea, coffee, if you provide free food is a big cost item. Then there are other additional aspects. There are companies that provide transport service to their staff, and therefore that also comes within the purview of workplace facility management and overall administration. Another important huge cost for a lot of companies is travel cost. There is a lot of business travel that happens in all the companies, and therefore, and mostly it's this team that manages the overall travel. That is basically your air and train travel plus the hotel stays of your staff who move between cities for work. So coming back to the point on firstly the importance of this budget, the fact that this entire function is one of the biggest cost centers for any organization. It's always in the limelight, and it is clear, outgoing cost. It's the cost of running business, and also at the end of the day, it's a cost for the organization. So therefore, it's always in focus where the entire process of managing these costs has to be kept under significant controls and checks, and there has to be a lot of planning that happens. So I'll just take some time to explain on how this entire planning happens. It's not rocket science. It's very, very simple. The fact that it is a lot of line entries, like when an annual operating budget or annual operating plans are made for the next year, like just like the budget of the government, like the annual government budget has just been announced for the next 1 year. The exercise is very, very similar. To put it in very simple words, there is X amount of money that we have to spend, and then we have to allocate that X amount into different buckets on how we want to spend it. And depending on what the priorities of the organization are, this money is then distributed into the different service lines. For example, if you have money to spend on your staff, you say we'll give you free food. If you don't have money to spend on your staff, you say we will not give free food. If you're an org which spends a lot which over indexes a lot on employee experience, you will say when staff travel, they will live in 3-star hotels, 4-star, 5-star hotels. If you would want to optimize there, you will say no, they will live in budget hotels. So these are basically the way decisions are made, and then depending on what the consumption is, then the budgets are then allocated through different line entries. So this is an annual exercise where the annual budget is made, and then there is a process of monthly P&L reporting, where when I spend for the entire 1 month through various vendors, at the end of the month, all these bills, when they come in, This reporting has to be done back to finance, that this is, I was allocated, for example, 10 crores for the month, and I have spent 9.5 crores, and this is the cost. And that all gets linked to the bills that are getting processed in the back end, which the accounts payable team manages, and that number and the number that I report have to match. And that's how, the entire monthly cost reporting process happens. And then each month there is obviously a lot of, calibration, recalibration on, should we spend more, where should we spend more, where should we spend less. And those are more, I think, leadership and strategic calls, which organizations take from time to time.
Another related question would be that, at least that's what I have learned, howsoever well planned I may be, there are always contingencies. There are always going to be situations which were not catered for. And so, how do you handle those unexpected expenses, oblique emergencies? And what are the typical contingencies uh, which a person in your job role faces on, let's say, on a regular basis?
So on a lighter side, sir, the other name of my job role is contingency management. The list of contingencies never ends, and because there are contingencies, therefore we are there. Otherwise, I think if the contingencies were less, the probably people at our level would be required. One of the key, coming back to the point, one of the key aspects of our job roles is to manage the risk, to manage the contingency, and to manage situations that were unplanned. Life in this sector is never going to be planned. Like, you cannot have a straight line that this is the Presi, this is red land, this is Greenland, this was taught to me, and this is what I will do. Like they teach in our academies, like once the first bullet is fired, then there is no Presi that holds good. There is no training that holds good. It's what you do on ground. It is exactly like that in the corporate. As many budgets as you may have, these are at the end of the day, sir, just guidances. Certain, guidances. However, especially for, young companies like ours, fast growing organizations like ours, where there is a lot of unknowns, there is a lot of new decisions that are taken during the calendar year or the financial year, which you've not budgeted for. Like this, for example, you want the company wants to suddenly, they have a bright idea and they want to invest money and start a new business, which was not planned when the business when the budget was made. Which means you've not planned any cost for that business, for that new business. There's no space that you planned for it. There is no people cost that you planned for it. There are no related training, onboarding costs that you planned for it. So these are all contingency costs, and a lot of these decisions, implementation will fall back on the workplace and infrastructure leads, because it directly impacts, uh, you know, us, because we are the support functions that are supposed to enable, these decisions. So I'd say, so there are two, three ways of managing these contingencies. One is obviously when you're making your annual budget, there is a certain contingency fund that you, what do you call, keep as part of your budget. But I'll be very truthful, these contingency funds finish in the first 2 months. It's basically everything new has to be looked at with a fresh pair of eyes, and it comes up as a fresh discussion, which means it's seen as a new cost, which has to be justified back to the leadership or the finance department, the CFO. And as heads of administration, one of the key things that we are required to do is, whenever there is a contingency or a fresh demand, it's upon us to make sure that we balance the decision of managing the cost as well as ensuring support to the business, or ensuring growth.
Okay. So now, since you mentioned something which triggers another question in my mind. So, how do you typically measure the return on investments of the spend on workplace infra and the associated paraphernalia of cost?
I'd say, sir, there's no real, direct answer on return of investment, because you, you know, these are aspects that which mostly impact the softer aspects of people's lives in office, their well-being, the culture, the camaraderie, the ease of doing business, uh, how much employees want to come back into offices and work. Are offices good enough? So there's really no direct metrics that we have that I'll say that I spent, 100 crores in my infrastructure, and this is the return on investment that I got. I think this is mostly done to through smarter ways of, people engagement, in having surveys with staff, having interactions with staff to understand, are they enjoying their offices, or maybe simply tracking on how many staff are actually coming back to office post the investments that you made a new office. Before that, staff never wanted to come back to office. They kept complaining the office is not good, we don't have enough seats, there's I don't feel at home. Everybody used to work from home now. So the return on investments, I would say, would have to be measured in slightly unconventional ways. Yeah.
So overall, it's a very interesting place to be in. I mean, in the sense that you are the cost center, implication being that there are a lot of accountability questions, but you don't translate it directly to the business top line. I mean, not to say the bottom line. I mean, you're not there on the revenue assurance part. So the returns have to be calculated more intangibly and by.
Exactly. That's where the smartness comes in. That's exactly where, you have to be like really, really smart in stakeholder management, where you are able to, because there is no, like, I cannot say because I made a new office, so many more ROs were sold by urban company, or so
Mhm.
many more deliveries. Like, there is no direct metrics that I can connect from the investments I've made in infra. The only connects I can make is through my people connect, through how I engage with leadership, because they talk to their teams give feedback. So it's I and Fauji's are fairly good at this. Like, we've managed people, we've interacted with people in good times and really bad times, and we know how to get feedback, and we know how to, solve problems. Like, one reason why 4Gs are really looked up to in these roles is that we are seen as problem solvers. We are not seen as just problem reporters. Ki bas, this is a problem and I go forward. I will never go to my leadership telling them this is a problem. I will go to them telling them this is a problem and this is the solution to it and this will be the cost. So
Right. Very interesting. Thank you so much for this discussion on the budgeting and ROI part of the facilities and workplace infra. Thank you for your time, Captain Vajita.